A humble grandmother standing next to her 8-year-old grandson carefully counts her coins to pay for her groceries. But the impatient cashier begins to humiliate her in front of everyone, throwing cruel words that cut like blades. With each passing second, the weight of shame grows in her eyes as she struggles to maintain her dignity for the sake of her grandson. What no one notices is that just behind her in line, a huge guy is watching everything with a serious gaze, and what he does next is so unexpected it will leave you in tears. Before we continue the story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel because tomorrow we have another special story for you. The morning air was crisp as Mary held Liam's small hand in hers. They walked along the sidewalk toward the grocery store, the sun casting a soft golden glow over the modest neighborhood. Mary, dressed in a worn but tidy cardigan, smiled faintly at her grandson's chatter, though her heart carried a weight she couldn't shake. "Grandma," Liam said, pointing to a tree, "that bird's nest is huge." Mary nodded, her eyes kind but tired. "It is, sweetheart. Maybe there are baby birds in there." Her life had changed forever since Emily, her daughter and Liam's mother, passed away unexpectedly a year ago. She was left to care for Liam with little more than her small pension and an unshakable determination to make sure he felt loved. Inside the grocery store, Liam's face lit up when he spotted a package of chocolate chip cookies on a shelf. He picked it up, his blue eyes shining with excitement. "Grandma! These were Mom's favorite. Remember how she used to dunk them in her tea?" Mary swallowed hard, feeling a pang in her chest. She did remember. Those cookies were a small but special tradition in their family. She smiled gently. "I remember, Liam. Let's put them in the cart, okay?" Liam nodded, unaware of the storm brewing in his grandmother's heart. At the checkout counter, Mary carefully laid out her items. Just the essentials: bread, milk, a small bag of rice, and some canned vegetables. Liam stood beside her, clutching the package of cookies. His excitement was palpable, but he stayed quiet, sensing his grandmother's careful focus. Mary reached into her worn coin purse, her fingers trembling slightly as she counted out the exact change. She frowned as she realized she might come up short. "Take your time," she whispered to herself, trying to stay calm. Brad, the young cashier, sighed loudly, tapping his fingers on the counter. His impatience was impossible to ignore. "Ma'am," he said, his tone sharp, "if you don't have enough, maybe put some stuff back. We've got a line, you know." Mary looked up, her cheeks flushing. I just need a moment, please," she said softly, trying to maintain her composure. But Brad wasn't done. He smirked and raised his voice. "This is why people should plan before they shop. It's not that hard." The few customers in line exchanged uneasy glances. Some whispered to each other, but no one stepped forward. Liam, sensing something was wrong, looked up at his grandmother with wide, confused eyes. "Grandma, is everything okay?" Mary forced a smile, even as her heart sank. "It's fine, sweetheart. Just a little mix-up." Brad let out another exaggerated sigh. "Lady, seriously, we don't have all day." Tears stung Mary's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She wouldn't let this man see her break. She glanced at the cookies Liam was holding, her heart breaking a little more. "Liam," she whispered, "maybe we should leave the cookies for another time." Liam's face fell, but he nodded bravely. "It's okay, Grandma. We don't need them." Mary's chest tightened. She hated this. She hated that her grandson, so young and full of hope, already understood sacrifice. She reached out to take the cookies from him, her hands shaking. Mary gently placed the cookies on the counter, her hands trembling as she pulled them away from Liam. "We'll get them next time," she said softly, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Liam bit his lip, nodding as he tried to hide his disappointment. "It's okay, Grandma," he whispered, though the sadness in his voice betrayed him. The customers behind them shuffled awkwardly. A woman muttered, "Poor thing," while another glanced at Brad with clear disapproval. But no one stepped forward, their discomfort holding them in place. Brad smirked, scanning the remaining items without a hint of remorse. "Finally," he muttered under his breath, loud enough for Mary to hear. Mary swallowed hard, her dignity crumbling under the weight of the moment. She handed Brad the coins she'd carefully counted and avoided his gaze as he bagged her groceries with exaggerated movements. Liam tugged at her sleeve as they waited. "Grandma, we can come back for the cookies later, right? Like, next time?" Mary nodded, quickly, blinking away tears. "Of course, sweetheart. Next time." But they both knew the truth. Next time could be weeks away, and even then, the cookies might not make the list. A wave of sadness swept over Mary as she glanced at her grandson, so young yet already learning how to live without. She wanted to shield him from the harshness of their reality, but today, she felt like she had failed. As Brad shoved the bag of groceries toward Mary, the tension in the air was thick. The silence of the other customers spoke volumes. It was a moment that seemed like it might pass without resolution, until a deep, commanding voice broke through the uneasy quiet. "Excuse me," the voice said firmly. Everyone turned to look, and the entire mood in the store shifted in an instant. A tall, unmistakable figure stepped forward from the back of the line. Shaquille O'Neal, towering over everyone, moved with a calm yet commanding presence. He was dressed casually in a hoodie and jeans, but his size and aura were impossible to ignore. The room seemed to hold its breath as Shaq walked up to the counter, his gaze fixed on Brad. He folded his massive arms and tilted his head slightly. "Hey," he said, his deep voice steady and firm. "What's your problem?" Brad blinked, suddenly caught off guard. I don't have a problem," he stammered, though his earlier arrogance had vanished. Shaq raised an eyebrow. "Really? Because it looked like you were being rude to this lady and her grandson. That's not how you treat people, man." Brad tried to recover, his voice defensive. "It's just... She was taking a long time and there's a line..." Shaq held up a hand, silencing him instantly. "I don't care how long it took. Respect doesn't have a time limit. You don't know what someone's going through. How about showing some patience instead of making her feel small?" The room stayed silent. Even the beeping of the checkout scanner seemed to pause as everyone watched the scene unfold. Mary looked up at Shaq, her eyes wide with surprise. She clutched Liam's hand tightly, unsure if she was dreaming. Liam's jaw dropped as he whispered, "Grandma? That's Shaq." Shaq turned to Mary, his expression softening. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. You don't deserve it. Let me fix this." Mary opened her mouth to protest, but Shaq gently held up his hand again. "No arguments, I've got this." He turned back to Brad, who was now red-faced and staring at the floor. "Here's what we're gonna do. I'm paying for all her groceries, everything she needs. And while you're at it, why don't you treat her with the respect she deserves?" Brad nodded quickly, mumbling, "Yes, sir." "I'm sorry." Shaq's presence had silenced not only Brad, but the entire store. The other customers watched with admiration, their discomfort melting into awe at his boldness. It was clear. Shaq wasn't just speaking to Brad. He was teaching everyone in that room a lesson they wouldn't forget. Shaq smiled warmly at Mary, his kind eyes meeting hers. "Ma'am, how about we make this a proper shopping trip? Go grab whatever you and your grandson need. Groceries, snacks, toys, whatever will make you both happy." Mary hesitated, overwhelmed. "Oh no, Mr. O'Neill, that's far too much." Shaq interrupted, with a gentle laugh. "Call me Shaq, and trust me, it's not too much. You've been through enough today. Let me take care of this." Liam's face lit up as he looked at his grandmother. "Really, Grandma? Can I get the cookies? And maybe a toy?" Mary's resolve wavered as she saw the pure joy in her grandson's eyes. She smiled softly and nodded. "All right, sweetheart." Shaq crouched down to Liam's level, his large frame making the gesture look almost comical. "Little man, you're the boss today. Go pick out whatever you like. I'll cover it." Liam's grin stretched ear to ear as he dashed back into the store, clutching the package of cookies like a trophy. "Thank you, Shaq," he called over his shoulder. Shaq straightened up and turned to Mary, his tone gentle. "Take your time. Get what you need. Don't worry about the cost." Tears welled up in Mary's eyes, but this time, they were tears of gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have no idea what this means to us." Shaq gave her a reassuring nod. "It's no big deal, ma'am. Just a little kindness." Meanwhile, Liam returned with a small toy car, a box of crayons, and, of course, the cookies. His excitement was contagious, and the other customers began to smile, their earlier discomfort replaced by admiration for what they were witnessing. As the cashier rang up the items, Shaq pulled out his card and handed it to Brad. "Go ahead and run that," he said firmly. Brad hesitated, his hands shaking as he took the card. He looked up at Shaq, embarrassed and regretful. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to." Shaq held up a hand, cutting him off, but not unkindly. "We all mess up sometimes. Just remember, kindness doesn't cost a thing. You never know what someone's dealing with, so be better next time." Brad nodded, his voice low. "Yes, sir. I understand." The transaction finished and Shaq handed the bagged groceries to Mary, who could barely find the words to thank him. Liam hugged the package of cookies tightly, beaming up at Shaq like he was a superhero. "All right," Shaq said, grinning at Liam. "You two ready to roll?" Liam giggled. "You're the coolest, Shaq." The store erupted in quiet applause as Mary and Liam left, their lives forever changed by the kindness of a stranger. As Mary and Liam left the store, Brad stood frozen behind the counter, his face flushed with embarrassment. The weight of Shaq's words hung in the air, and he couldn't shake the guilt of how he'd treated Mary. Shaq lingered for a moment, his towering presence impossible to ignore. He leaned on the counter and looked directly at Brad. "Let me tell you something, man. You've got a job where you meet people every day, and every single one of them has their own struggles. Sometimes they're just doing their best to get by. You don't know their story, so why not choose kindness?" Brad nodded slowly, avoiding Shaq's gaze. "You're right. I shouldn't have acted like that. I was out of line." Shaq gave him a small nod of approval. It takes a big person to admit when they're wrong. Own it, learn from it, and do better next time. Brad hesitated, then said, "Thank you for saying that. I'll make sure this doesn't happen again." Shaq smiled and gave him a light pat on the shoulder. "Good. Because how you treat people matters, more than you think." As Shaq turned to leave, the other customers in line began to murmur. One woman stepped forward and said to Brad, "He's right, you know. You've got a chance to be better. Don't waste it." Brad nodded, humbled by the moment. He glanced at the empty space where Mary and Liam had stood just moments ago. "I'll do better," he said quietly. In the days that followed, Brad found himself reflecting deeply on the incident. He apologized to several regular customers and began making an effort to greet everyone with a smile. Inspired by Shaq's example, he even volunteered to lead an employee training session on customer empathy and respect. It wasn't just Brad who changed. The store's management took notice of the viral video circulating online, where Shaq's gesture had been captured by a bystander. The video was spreading fast, inspiring thousands of viewers with its message of kindness and compassion. The management implemented mandatory empathy training for all employees, using the incident as a teachable moment. For Brad, this wasn't just a chance to redeem himself. It was a wake-up call to treat every customer, no matter their circumstances, with the dignity and respect they deserved. The very next day, the incident was all over social media. A customer in line had captured the entire moment on their phone, from Brad's initial rudeness to Shaq's incredible act of kindness. The video quickly went viral, racking up millions of views within hours. The caption read, "Shaq shows us all how to be human." In the video, Shaq's words rang clear, "Kindness doesn't cost a thing." Viewers from around the world shared the clip, praising Shaq for his generosity and for standing up for Mary and Liam. The comments section was flooded with admiration. This is why Shaq is a legend, both on and off the court. The world needs more people like him. I needed this reminder today. Be kind, always. News outlets picked up the story, interviewing witnesses and store employees. People praised Shaq not just for helping Mary and Liam, but for turning the moment into a life lesson for everyone in the store, especially Brad. The store's management released a public statement addressing the situation. "We are grateful to Mr. O'Neill for his compassion and for reminding us all of the importance of empathy. Moving forward, we will ensure all our employees receive proper training to create a welcoming environment for every customer." Brad, feeling the weight of the public attention, chose to step forward in his own way. He released a statement apologizing to Mary and her grandson, admitting his mistakes and pledging to treat every customer with kindness and respect. He even volunteered to lead the new empathy training sessions at the store. Meanwhile, Shaq declined to comment on the viral video, preferring to let his actions speak for themselves. "I'm just glad I could help," he told a reporter who caught him leaving a local event. But what the world didn't know was that Shaq wasn't done helping. Behind the scenes, he was already working on something that would change Mary and Liam's lives forever. A few days after the incident, Mary and Liam were sitting in their small but cozy living room. Liam was busy coloring with the crayons Shaq had bought him, humming happily to himself. For the first time in a long while, Mary felt a glimmer of peace. Then came a knock at the door. Mary opened it to find a man in a crisp suit holding an envelope with Shaq's name on it. "Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Shaquille O'Neal," he said with a warm smile. "He asked me to deliver this personally." Mary's hands shook as she accepted the envelope. I don't understand." The man tipped his hat. "All will be explained inside. Have a wonderful day, ma'am." As the man left, Mary sat down on the couch, staring at the envelope. Liam scooted closer, his eyes wide with curiosity. "Open it, Grandma," he said excitedly. Mary carefully tore it open and pulled out a letter. As she read, tears welled up in her eyes. The letter began, "Dear Mary, it was an honor meeting you and your amazing grandson, Liam. You're stronger than you realize, and it's clear how much love you pour into him. I wanted to do something to help lighten the load you carry, even just a little. Inside this envelope, you'll find information about a trust fund I've set up for Liam's education. No matter what he dreams of becoming, a doctor, a teacher, an artist, he'll have the resources to make it happen. You'll also find a year's worth of grocery store gift cards. Use them to fill your home with everything you need, and a few treats too. You've got this, Mary. Stay strong and keep smiling for Liam. You're both an inspiration. Sincerely, Shaq." Mary's hands trembled as she unfolded the accompanying documents confirming the trust fund and the stack of gift cards. "Grandma, what does it say?" Liam asked, tugging at her sleeve. Mary pulled him into a tight hug, her tears falling freely now. "It says we're going to be okay, sweetheart. It says someone out there really cares about us." That evening, Mary sat at the kitchen table, writing a heartfelt thank you note to Shaq. She didn't know how she could ever repay him, but she knew one thing for certain. Her faith in humanity had been restored. As for Liam, he held onto the cookies Shaq had bought him, savoring every bite and every moment of joy that had come from that unforgettable day. Weeks later, Mary and Liam were spending a sunny afternoon at the local park. Liam raced around with his toy car, laughing as it zoomed across the sidewalk. Mary watched from a bench, a rare feeling of calm settling over her. "Grandma, look! It's going so fast!" Liam shouted, grinning as the car spun in circles. Mary chuckled, her heart full. She couldn't stop thinking about how much their lives had changed since that day at the grocery store. Shaq's generosity had given them more than just financial help. It had given them hope. Just as Mary leaned back to soak in the moment, a familiar deep voice called out, "Mind if I join you?" She looked up, her eyes widening, as Shaquille O'Neal approached, casually dressed in a t-shirt and jeans, carrying a basketball under one arm. "Shaq!" Liam cried, running over to him. Shaq crouched down to give Liam a high five, his grin as wide as the horizon. "What's up, little man? Still got those cookies?" Liam laughed. "I ate them all, but they were so good. Thank you." Mary stood, smiling warmly. "Mr. O'Neal, what a surprise. We didn't expect to see you again." "Call me Shaq," he said, waving off the formality. "I was in the area and thought I'd stop by. I brought you guys something." He handed Mary a small wrapped package. Inside was a framed photo from their day at the grocery store, a picture someone had taken of Shaq, Mary, and Liam smiling together. Liam gasped. "That's us." "That's not all," Shaq said, pulling out a basketball signed with his name. "This is for you, buddy. Every time you play with it, remember that you can do anything you put your mind to." Liam hugged the ball tightly, his face glowing with excitement. "Thank you, Shaq. You're the best." Shaq turned to Mary, his expression sincere. "You're doing an amazing job, Mary. I just wanted to remind you of that. Keep going. You've got this." Mary's eyes filled with tears, but this time, they were tears of joy. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "You already have," Shaq replied with a gentle smile. "Just keep being you." As Shaq stood to leave, Liam called out, "Shaq, can you play basketball with me?" Shaq laughed, spinning the ball on one finger. "You bet I can. Let's see what you've got, little man." The afternoon was filled with laughter and joy as Shaq played with Liam, the sounds of their fun echoing through the park. For Mary, it was a moment she would cherish forever, a reminder that kindness truly has the power to change lives. As the day at the park came to an end, Shaq knelt down to say goodbye to Liam. "Remember, little man," he said, "always be kind and always believe in yourself. You're going to do amazing things." Liam nodded eagerly, holding on to his signed basketball like it was the most precious thing in the world. "I will, Shaq. I promise." Mary walked up to Shaq, her eyes shining with gratitude. "You've given us more than you know. Thank you for reminding us that there's still so much good in the world." Shaq smiled, towering over her, but somehow making her feel like the most important person in the moment. "Mary, it's people like you who inspire the rest of us. Don't ever forget how strong you are." With a wave and a warm smile, Shaq left the park, blending into the world like an everyday hero. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, Mary and Liam sat on the bench, watching the colors change in the sky. She held the framed photo in her hands, reflecting on how one act of kindness had turned their lives around. The narrator's voice fades in, In a world where so many are struggling, it only takes one person to make a difference. A kind word, a helping hand, or even just a smile can change someone's day or their entire life. Shaquille O'Neal's actions remind us of the power we all hold to uplift others. Compassion doesn't require fame or wealth. It requires heart. The camera pans out, showing Mary and Liam laughing together, the signed basketball bouncing at their feet. The narrator concludes, "Today, let's choose kindness. Let's choose to see the struggles others might be hiding and respond with empathy. Because when we do, we create a ripple effect that can change the world, one act at a time." The screen fades to black with the words, "Kindness is free. Pass it on." I hope you like this story. Subscribe Storyboat for daily upcoming heartwarming stories like this. Also visit and check out other stories on Storyboat.